And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Louis Valentino, author, professional astrologer, and honorary member in the Ashtar Command. Louis, thanks for joining us and welcome.
Namaste, thank you. Thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you being here, Louis. And what started for you first, ET contact or your interest in astrology?
Well, the first thing that started in 1978 was I started practicing transcendental meditation. I got initiated into that particular meditation technique to kind of release stress and get a clear mind, that sort of thing. Then after a while, I was introduced to astrology, probably about 6 years into that. I've been a regular meditator now for 48 years in August of 2026. So I have never stopped meditating for a month and then went back on. It's been 48 years straight. I do it twice a day. It's just a part of the whole idea of kind of like a cell phone, the cell phone wears out and you got to replug it back in and get recharged. So I get my recharge every day, twice a day. Then I got introduced to astrology through a close friend who was also a meditator, and he did my chart for me, and I got so interested that I went off into astrology. That was about at the age of 26, I believe. And so then I just kept delving into it and getting, reading books and on astrology from various authors, famous authors, and then I just decided I wanted to do my own readings. So 35 years ago, I started to do more professional readings, and then the ET thing started around the same time as the astrology thing, actually. So we're looking back, maybe 1984. I got a reading from a gentleman who was channeling Lord Ashtar from the Ashtar Command. And I found that reading to be I've gotten several readings over the years. You can imagine most of us who are into spirituality, we end up getting a psychic reading or going to a psychic fair or, reputable people that we trust. And it was a very good reading. It had a lot of information in it. I was told by Lord Ashtar that I was part of, this is going back at least 8 million years ago, as a rainbow warrior in the Orion Wars to help protect some of the civilizations that were the offset of the Lyra constellation. That was our first expression, the Lyra constellation. And if I don't mind, can I hold up books from different authors to talk about this? Is that not good, or?
Sure, that's fine. But before you go there, for the people who are meeting or learning about Ashtar for the first time, who is Ashtar?
Lord Ashtar he was born on the planet Ashtar, which was in the vicinity of the Venus in that area. He was chosen by Sananda, Jesus Christ, to be the COO. So Jesus Christ is the CEO. And he wanted Lord Ashtar, he felt qualified to keep the intergalactic universal confederation of worlds in order and try to keep it organized somehow. There are supposedly 12 dimensions, and there are other authors that feel there's 7, I heard 9. But to me, 12 is the magic number. We have 12 calendar months. We have 12 disciples of Christ. We have 12 notes on the musical alphabet. We have supposedly 12 dimensions with 12 levels in each dimension with 12 sub-universes. And so that creates the whole picture of the Federation, and it has different levels. So Ashtar is basically someone that, as Jesus Christ is, and Lord Krishna and Lord Buddha is involved as the planetary logos right now, not the universal logos of the universes, but of our planet. And they watch over things. They try to make sure that things don't get too out of control, even though we are seeing a lot of out of control violence over the last 100 years on our planet. And it's gone on quite a long time in the past. So he's basically 7 feet tall. The book, if anybody wanted to get this, but the only person that I know the best channeler for Lord Ashtar was Sister Tuella. So she wrote a book on Ashtar. Okay, that's what he looks like. And then the painting on this is done by the late Salela Winkler, who was I'm going to read some information. I'm not like an encyclopedia and know everything, so I got to read sometimes. But Salela Winkler was a highly clairvoyant artist who painted many Earth and cosmic masters between 1969 and the 1980s. She worked for Walt Disney Studios for some time as an artist, later moved to California desert, where she lived near prominent figures in the early UFO movement. Her work includes postcards featuring various celestial beings and spiritual guides. I think it's like 24 postcards that she put out at that time. So that picture was one of the pictures by her of Lord Ashtar there. You see Lord Ashtar being depicted on some of the YouTube videos as being muscular, and he just got out of the gym, and it's kind of a bit superficial, I feel. I think when you get to the 7th level, you got the first 6 levels of dimensions. Then you have the next 6. So you got 12 altogether. When you're ascended master, you've gotten into the 7th level. Now you've learned all the lessons in the lower 6, and now you're ready to learn more lessons from the 7th to the 12th. Lord Ashtar and a lot of the ascended masters hang out the 7th dimension to the 12th dimension. And the reason why I bring this up is it's more etheric. It's more light bodies rather than dense physical. We have very dense physical flesh bodies. Most people, your viewers, already know that, from the videos they've heard. Yeah, he's 7 feet tall, more pale skin, blonde hair. They have the ability to live a holographic. The more, levels you go up, the more holographic life gets. So he has the ability, as most of them do, to be in several places, if not more than that, at the same time doing work, rather than just being localized in one linear lifetime like we are. He has never had a lifetime in physical embodiment on planet Earth. That's another thing to consider.
Are you in regular contact with him?
He wanted, in the reading, he said that if you are truly extraterrestrial, you'll have some silver and gold rays in your auric field. He said that depending on how much gold, silver and gold, would determine how much service that you've done in the past. And he said that I had a lot of gold in my auric field, that he wanted to, come through me and this sort of thing. I tend to be shy about this because we really should be on the path of self-empowerment at this point. Meaning, if we can't, we can get just as codependent on another entity, on another dimension, as we do even with people here on Earth in a flesh body. So I tend to shy away. I will ask him for questions once in a while. I think what's happening, Jeff, is that I'm having this experience of direct communication. I would even say it's telepathic, and because of my astrology chart, I have a Cazimi conjunction. I'm going to talk about this a little bit, explain it to your audience, between Mercury and the Sun in the sign of Pisces. Cazimi means in the heart of. It's so close to the sun that the rays of the sun miss it, and it's not considered combust. It's not being burned up and heated up. So because it's within 17 minutes of the sun, it's in the heart of the sun. And what does Mercury do? It's the communicator. It's in the 9th house, which is higher consciousness and higher knowledge and philosophy and all that. So I think my ability is I do automatic writing for most part if I'm writing a book, okay, which I've written. But if I want to ask Lord Ashtar a question, I can go directly to him and say, I'm asking you about this. How do you feel about this? And a lot of us who've been around for so long with him, he loves to just, talk to us like he's our friend, because he knows how hard and difficult it's been for volunteers of light to come here on this planet, lifetime after lifetime, we're talking hundreds of lifetimes, if not thousands, where we've had to leave behind our light bodies and our abilities in storage. So when we came here in a physical flesh body, we left behind our abilities in light bodies in storage because we had to come down here in a flesh body and experience what everybody else is experiencing in order to try and help people take the next step forward.
Earlier, you mentioned that for the last 100 years, we have had a lot of violence on this planet.
Have we ever?
Why doesn't he and the other ETs step in and do something to help us?
It's a great question. Even for Lord Ashtar, he gets frustrated sometimes with the karmic board. He literally goes there sometimes and slams his fist on the table, and says, we've got to get this thing moving. It's so multidimensional. This planet is not a user-friendly planet when it comes to extraterrestrial invitation. We just we shoot at a balloon, for God's sakes, a spy balloon. We spend almost $1 million or $500,000 on a rocket to shoot. You can imagine what would happen if they showed up and you're getting this unfriendly welcome at the door. So I think it's been held up in that sense. The other thing was, we all thought it was going to happen in 2012, where there was going to be a mass, contact with UFOs and stuff, and the Federation we would join back into the Federation of Worlds and get out of the quarantine status.
What are we quarantined about?
We got quarantined because we killed our own mother, which was Lemuria. Atlantis decided it wanted to go in a negative direction. What Lord Ashtar calls the do your own thing crowd at everyone else's expense, when people use their free will and decide that they want to go more in a overpowerment position and overpower. So Atlantis was one of the daughter continents of Lemuria. Lemuria, according to the authors Sheldon Idle and Virginia Scene, they written a book called this was published, I think, in the early 1990s, You Are Becoming a Galactic Human, where they talk about the fact that Lemuria, according to his information, started 900,000 years ago. And that Atlantis and Egypt and China, these were all daughter continents of Lemuria. So about 26,000 years ago, Atlantis decided to destroy Lemuria, and that kind of negativity broke off the connection and put it into quarantine because you're not paying attention. You're acting like a bunch of crazy people, and you've disconnected us from the higher dimensions. So now the communication, the telepathic communication, all that gets minimized, and basically we broke our commitment to them, and when now that's not the only time it's happened either. It's happened along the way other times too. So the idea that the Earth is forming what's called a graduation period now that we're in order to be ready, they wanted enough people to be ready. That's the stalling, is we'd like to have more people. My opinion to Lord Ashtar, and sometimes I can get frustrated, with Lord Ashtar and Jesus, Sananda, Yeshua, whatever you want to call his entity, Lord Krishna, Maitreya, the White Brotherhood, Lord Buddha, all of them, Enoch and Metatron, and the whole archangels and the Ascended Masters and everything, is they don't really have a choice at this point. If they would like the planet to continue in its survival here on Earth, then they've got to make a move. I would say within the next couple of years, they've got to make some kind of a major move. It's like a domino effect. So once somebody tips the first domino, the rest of them kind of, go down in line. We need somebody to switch, trigger the switch there, put the light on, so that the social hypnosis on this planet is disrupted considerably, and people can start to think, oh, geez, what's this about?
Do you have contact with any other ETs like the Pleadians?
I do. I have, especially Aim. Aim is The entity that I started channeling through automatic writing, probably, I think I started on full moons. I would ask a question and ask Aim, what's going to happen with this situation after contact? What's going to happen, like economics or whatever, question I wanted to ask him. And Aim is on the 7th level of the 6th dimension. He is a part of the Pleadian Council. The Pleadian Council is more etheric. Okay, it is part physical, but it's more refined physical, more refined etheric. And they download information to the Pleadians in their culture so that they can decide what they would like to do with that information. It's free will, it's a true, how should you say, true republic of spirituality, and the political system there is almost not, if you want me to read a question that I asked him about politics, I can give you an answer here. Sometimes I like to read things because it's hard for me to recapture, in a really effortless way what I've channeled. He says here, when I asked him, what is the political ideology of the Pleadians? He says, our political system is non-political. We do not encourage competition or take sides. We certainly do not need to manipulate each other through any physical means, since we work with light frequencies of energy very well. Love is free in our culture. It is not something we mold with the machinery of mind. We do not live in fear as you do, so we have no need to protect love from itself. Politics is another form of duality, regardless of the form it takes. Humans are disconnected to the unbounded silence of bliss, deep in the mind, heart, and soul. Think in terms of competition, an environment of duality. Who is right and who is wrong? Your institutions make promises they cannot keep because it is run by man's monster mind, built up to protect it from losing security in life. But the building up of mind only perpetuates the need to protect life, which was freely given to Earth humans a long time ago. Then he says, we see abundance as rays of golden white light and other colors of the rainbow you witness. If your weather environment is set up to see these colors, and we exchange these color rays with everything and everyone we meet, we have grown out of the need to own anyone or anything, because light waves flow so fast here, it's almost impossible to get stuck in matter. It's impossible to get stuck in a relationship or a job where you're flowing. So that's, if you have any questions about that, that's their kind of general model of politics, that this idea of competition and creating a duality, who is right, who is wrong. This is very ripe in our political system right now in the United States. If you haven't noticed.
Well, let's say tomorrow the ETs come and they fully disclose themselves, right? What will our political and even our economic systems be like? Will we be under galactic credits or something else?
Yeah, well, what it is kind of galactic credits at the beginning. I see it in a few phases. The first phase is going from what you're looking at is Bitcoin. What else is it? Bitcoin, then the quantum financial system, digital wallet. The people are going to be getting. We have to go baby steps. You don't eat a banana and just rip it apart and just start eating it. You peel it one thing at a time. The skin has to be peeled. So I think the very end, even the introductory to a new financial system is going to be quite profoundly different than what we have right now. But they don't have any physical form of money in the upper dimensions, especially when you get into the 6th and you start going up towards the 7th. You get a barter system. The barter system, they feel that once a group grows beyond 100 people, it is susceptible to ego manipulations. Everything has gotten too big on this planet. The federal government and all these, organizations, the international banking system of families, everything's gotten so large that nobody seems to be responsible for anything. And then all these ghosts come out in the end on the TV of who did this and who stole that, and this was illegal and that was, So they feel that when we come back into small family groups, we're able to fulfill the law of Christ of love thy neighbor as you love thyself. Right now, it's love money as you love money. I mean, everybody, that's like the ultimate security of freedom that we're taught through economics right now, is that if you have more money, you have more freedom. And children are where the gold is in the Pleadian culture and many of the intergalactic cultures, the Syrians, the Arcturians, Andromedans, they take care of their children. That's the first thing that they want to see, that they're gaining confidence in their early years when they grow up.
Do you have a timeline for disclosure?
Yeah, I do. I wanted to talk to your audience about astrology a little bit with the timeline. One of the things that the timelines, the reason why some of them haven't come, the question back to the beginning of the interview, why haven't they reacted, or especially at certain times when we thought they would. I mean, Sister Tuella, when she wrote Project World Evacuation, this came out in 1982. We were supposed to have a major pole shift, and there was going to be a major evacuation. And it's my understanding that they can evacuate a planet in less than 15 minutes if an emergency situation. Okay. But they're not good with time. They're not good with time. Time is, Saturn, the planet Saturn in astrology, that rules time in karma. It's the disciplinary of the zodiac. You got to show up on time. That's Saturn. They don't have that. It's more, it's like a spontaneous coming together. They don't have to evaluate every second or minute that they're doing something and then measure it and all that kind of stuff, So astrology actually becomes a very important role in trying to figure out what time first contact would be. So the planets that are involved right now, I feel, is called a minor grand trine. These outer planets, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. They're the planets that are furthest away in our solar system. So they take longer to move through a sign. But when they're, like, for instance, Uranus takes 7 years to go through a sign. Neptune around 12, 14 years. Pluto anywhere from 13 to 20 years it'll take to go through a sign. When they're aligned up and having a relationship with one another, that is usually indication of, are we getting downloads of information from higher dimensions, that is setting up something. And I feel like from May of 2025 to May of 2029, we have a minor grand trine happening between these three planets. These are the transpersonal planets, meaning they cover the collective consciousness of the world. They're not as personal planets like Mercury and Mars, and they affect us more individually and personally. So the minor grand trine. Now the major grand trine, see how I have that big green triangle? That's what a regular grand trine looks like. I call this divine grace. There's no stress in the trines, okay? Now see, the minor grand trine is a trine between Pluto and Uranus, but it's sextiling Neptune at the eye of this minor grand trine. And of course, Neptune is it's the higher octave of Venus, so it's very spiritual. My prediction is that in the ripest times, we are getting new downloads, like you would get an upgrade on your computer, let's say from Microsoft. Now you got 8.0, you got 9.0, and it keeps going up. We've had the first exact minor grand trine in August and September of 2025. Now, the reason why I'm saying those dates is because that's when the degrees are exact. It's at 1 degree, all those three planets, right? Then they're going to retrograde and go back. They're going to come back at 4 degrees in July of this year, 2026. Then they're going to retrograde. They're going to come back at 6 degrees in June of 2027. But the energy still continues. But if you looked at the first minor grand trine period, we had the longest shutdown in America of the government. Everything was shutting down. I mean, it seemed like everything was standing still. People were telling me they needed to sleep more. They needed to, they were having more telepathic communication type of things going on. Okay. So it's a spiritual download from higher dimensions, let's say from the 12th, 11th, 9th, and they download to the frequency that specific dimension can handle. So we can only handle, so if they download too much, you're seeing it already. So here we have this one time, okay, the first time that was August and September, and then it extended to the rest of 2026. We had the longest shutdown. Well, what happened during that time? We had the airports losing airway time. Okay, so now we don't have as many planes flying in the air. The air traffic controllers were ready to do a walkout at one point. They were going to close the whole air traffic controller situation down in the United States. So because of that, they could easily download information because there wasn't a lot of ley lines and, the accidental grid lines, the light lines that run along the paths of you could call them like the meridians or the nadis, these pathways where energy flows, light energy flows. That was pretty much interrupted for that time for them to download. They downloaded the foundation to what they would like to express in the second minor grand trine, which is coming up in July of 2026. So now we're going to be possibly, hopefully, seeing a lot more UFO sightings. Okay, and a lot of other channelers have been talking about this. That we are going to start seeing so many sightings and people getting them on. This is from July, even June, I would say, of 2026, all the way to the rest of the year. But it's very ripe in July. And what is happening in July of this year, 2026? We have the anniversary of America, 250 year. So it's going to be a very big celebration. And, so we may have contact during that time, at least from the air. I don't feel like we're going to get them to really be here in person to be introduced by the government or something like that until we get into 2027. That's been confirmed by other channelers also, and other authors. So I concur with their assessment that I think that in 2027, we could have it sooner. The nuclear situation, the nuclear bombs are plentiful. We're hearing on the news now because that can trigger automatic connection. Now I got this off the internet. I don't know if it's correct, and your viewers can tell me if any information that I'm giving out with dates is incorrect. They can. I don't know everything. I'm not God, So if they want to help me also, establish figures, but the amount of nuclear weapons in the world per country, and this ought to give you a good idea as to why are we so concerned about Iran having one nuclear bomb, okay? When the fact is Russia has 5,580. America has 5,225. China has 600. France has 290. United Kingdom 225. India 172. Pakistan 170. Israel 90. And North Korea has 50. So we didn't learn from World War II. We obviously didn't learn all the thousands of people that got killed from just a couple atomic bombs. That was our first expression, at least in our history, that we are aware of, where we've had atomic bombs being dropped to destroy a civilization. And then, of course, the problems that come after that for people to continue their life. It was just phenomenal for a while. So this is the reason why there has been more UFO sightings and all kinds of stuff going on since World War II, and the Federation getting more involved because they're like, well, we thought they might learn from that. That's why they let it go. We thought we might learn from that. We haven't learned from it, okay, obviously.
Are you saying that they won't let us destroy this planet with a nuclear war?
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, that's the clause that I've heard from Lord Ashtar and a lot of people, channelers, that they will not allow a nuclear war, major nuclear war. They've allowed certain things like the tsunami that hit Japan and hit the nuclear power plant and that sort of thing. And there was radiation released uranium. They will allow that, but they won't allow a massive nuclear war. They will come in at that point, and you will see a lot of spaceships. You will, and everybody will be very aware that they're stopping something, from happening.
If you compile all the astrological data with everything that you've learned from the ETs in your communication, what can you share with us that's coming in the near future besides the sightings in July?
Well, I think I originally thought it would be a massive, you've heard people say they're going to be all over the planet and show up all at the same time. I don't feel it's going to happen that way. I would concur with Bashar and Daryl Anka. Okay. I would concur with that channel that is going to happen one step at a time. So you may get a few countries that are involved with sightings to the point where they want to introduce certain ET races to the public. The human appearing races will be the first to be introduced. Okay, the Pleadians are human appearing. A lot of them think they're Nordic looking. They're blonde hair and all that. Not all of them are, but most of them are. The problem is with the UFO community, I feel, is they get too much into the Zeta Reticuli project, which are the big eyes, and the smaller bodies, and some of these other races. Everything is perfection. Everything is perfection. So I'm not trying to make a judgment here and be critical, but why aren't we talking about everything? I'm the kind of a guy, put all your cards on the table. Don't tell me just one part of the story. The Zeta Reticuli with the abduction cases. Whitley Strieber, you had on your show, interviewed him. Now, there's a guy who I just admire because, what he's been through and how stable he appears in his personality is very incredible. That's like a miracle, But he has said that they smell like ammonia, all right? And they've taken a lot of body fluids from him. So is this the race that is more evolved, or are they evolved technologically, but maybe they're not evolved spiritually? This is the distinction the UFO community sometimes doesn't make. Yes, they're 3,000 years ahead of us technologically or more. The Pleadians are 8,000 years ahead of us technologically. The Syrians probably, I don't know what their numbers are, but they're way ahead of us. They're way advanced than we are technologically. But it's the spiritual element of the heart that I think gets lost, because God knows if you're an alien, and I don't even like to use the word alien, but if you are from another race and you are hypnotizing people to the point when you look into their eyes that you have no defenses anymore and they want to take things from you, they probably aren't too heart-centered, are they? Most of the people and experience that I've heard a lot from the abduction cases, they're not experiencing heaven on earth. Let's put it that way. They're going through a lot of psychological adjustments and emotional. What is going on? What are they doing? So you have the hybrid races also that need to be reintroduced. That's that's his specialty, really. He wants to reintroduce the hybrid races to planet Earth because they deserve to be loved by their original parents if they're still alive, from the time that they got abducted.
Do you see UFOs?
I did. I had an experience. I'm glad you asked that question. This was right after I wrote the first edition of my book. I wrote the book 2009, and then in July of 2010, it was in Madison, Connecticut, off of West Wharf Road, where there was a fireworks display happening. And I was with a friend that I had worked with as a produce clerk at that time. And we wanted to go see the fireworks. We're starting it. We parked the car because there was too many cars parked on West Wharf Road. We had to park on the Main Street in Madison, Connecticut. So we're starting to walk down the road, and we look up and we see two spherical balls of golden light floating. No sound, very graceful, very effortless. And they floated for a while, and then not even a half a minute, we were looking at them, and then they went down the road towards the ocean, towards Long Island, and just boom. But it was all very graceful, very effortless. I would say they were about as big as if you take a basketball and you multiply it times 5. All right, it would be that big. Then another one came about, I think it was, 30 seconds later, after they left, and then followed them. And then when I went down to the beach, you had all these people waiting for the fireworks. Well, there was one guy who had a reputation of, he just was always doing something drunk, or he was not your average normal person. But you would think he'd be the last person who would come up to me and say, "Did you see those 3? Was that UFOs, Lou?" He would be the last person that I would even, So I said, yeah, that those were UFOs. It was very obvious to me. So that has been my only physical experience with the UFOs. I think some people haven't had as many experiences. They may not need them. I'm a firm believer, 500% of what's going on. I don't need to be on a ship or, that sort of thing in order to be that. I'm not, trying to say my experience is better than others, but some people will say, well, how do you know there's ETs? Have you ever seen one? And then I would say, yeah, every morning when I shave, I see an ET. So we have to get back to the idea that there are human beings here that look what we consider to be normal as part of our race here on planet Earth, that are actually volunteers of light from other higher dimensions that decided to come here and try to help planet Earth out.
You described 2024 to 2044 as the preparation phase for humanity. What exactly does this look like according to the Pleadians?
Well, what they want to do is this is getting to know one another. This is a time when we have physical contact somewhere in that. If we go beyond 2044, let's put it that way, I think we're all in trouble in terms of, our predictions and everything. I think we need to have contact as soon as possible, because we've already had, Sister Tuella's, what was the other guy? George Van Tassel. I think he was the first person to channel Lord Ashtar. This was in, I think, 1953, July, if I'm not mistaken. And then the Sister Tuella came by. She was the clearest channel. Then we had 1987, which was the harmonic convergence, where you had the first large global meditation that raised the frequency enough so we didn't have to go through a lot of the catastrophes that some of the people that were predicting. Then we had Sheldon Idle, Virginia C come out in the 1990 something with their book. And we were supposed to go through a photon belt of darkness for 3 days. 1996, we were supposed to do that. That didn't happen. Then 2012 came with the Mayan calendar and all that. Well, that didn't happen then. So here we are in 2026. And I think what they want to do in the preparation phase is, we're getting introduced. We're getting to know, what is your economy look like? What does your romantic life look like? What does, how is it that you live 700 years without any problems in your physical body? Things of that sort. We're getting to know each other in the preparation phase. That's the Pluto in Aquarius length of time. It's 20 years. And I picked Pluto because Pluto is where everything is hidden. It has to get out of disclosure. It's too much into, it has to be disclosed. It's too secretive, everything. It's been so secretive since the Roswell incident. Even the very first UFO crashes, believe it or not, were in Italy that were recorded. This was in 1931 and 1933, if I'm not mistaken. And they did get some aliens on those ships. They did do autopsies on some of these aliens, especially the Roswell incident. And, people, if you go on YouTube and go in a search to hear a couple of people that came forward with interviews, on their family members, their grandfather, whatever, who was directly responsible for going to the ship in the Roswell incident and seeing the three beings, two of them that were passed over and one of them still alive walking around. She said that looked distraught and, and worried about the fact that, what are we, my comrades have been killed here in this crash. And, some of the stories that have come out from that.
You write about relationships. What can you tell us is the difference between soulmates and soul twins?
Suppose that we have an oversoul. Remember, I talked about 12 being the magic number. So in your oversoul, which is a larger, let's say, culmination of who you are today here on Earth, your individual soul, you have 12 parts of that oversoul, 6 male, 6 female. So you have 11 other soul twins that came out of that oversoul. All right. These soul twins vibrate more in regards to who your essential nature is, because they came from the same oversoul. Now, they're not always the same growth. You can meet a soul twin. I've had this experience where they're vibrating at a number 3 and you're vibrating at number 9. They may not even notice that you're a soul twin, but you may notice it. You ever hear about these relationships where people say, why don't they pick up on the same feeling I'm picking up on? I love them so much, I want to be with them, but they seem to have no idea as to how I'm feeling about it. That can be like a soul twin relationship. The soulmate relationships are more challenged, okay? That's the alcoholic father or the teacher at school that just bugs you and is trying to discipline you and just becomes a scary monster to you. The people at work, maybe somebody at work who's not doing their job, and these are the soulmates. They create the lessons so that we can get to a soul twin. But in my life now, at 68 years old, I feel like even the soulmate and the soul twin relationships can be a distraction from connecting with your own individual self. So we have to be careful that we're not always projecting and looking for fulfillment in the objective world all the time. The spiritual path is mainly going within, yoking back in yoga, going back to sitting quietly with yourself. We aren't forming a relationship with silence. This is the major disaster of our whole civilization, is that we're constantly looking for fulfillment outside of ourselves. And the kind of stress that builds up in the nervous system, you're seeing expressed as war, wars that go on. So what was the original question? Oh, soulmates, soul twins.
Is the soul twin the same thing as a twin flame?
Yes, it is. And the other thing I wanted to mention quickly, you cannot find a soul twin relationship in an astrological chart. Only the soul can feel the soul of a soul twin. Not all soul twins are romantic. I had a soul twin relationship with my grandmother, So you can't have soul twin relationships outside of the romantic, personal avenue of life.
If somebody met a soul twin, what would they experience? How would they know that this is a twin?
Yeah, I mean, it's really an intense knowingness of attraction. The attraction is pretty, and it's kind of like transcends a bit the physical. The physical, it's okay. I mean, even like when I lived on Venus, sometimes I'll meet people that I think, especially the girls, I'm thinking she definitely was on Venus. The beauty is exquisite, but the beauty goes deeper than the physical, because now you're getting into almost there's a gap of time. When you meet the person, you feel like time has gone somewhere else. You do feel, the word I want to use the most about this is comfortableness. It's like sitting in the most comfortable chair you could ever imagine. That you feel that comfortable around somebody that you just don't even need to talk. You can telepathically communicate. You can you feel like you've known them forever, even after 5 minutes, that sort of thing.
I want to bring you back to something. You said that you lived on Venus.
Yeah.
When was that and what was it like?
It's a great question as to the timing of it, because I think it was, well, let's put it this way. Sanat Kumara and his other half, Lady Master Venus, are the overlookers of Venus. From my understanding, nobody lives on Venus anymore. They're all in the etheric, and a lot of them live in, Centauri. I forget the first name of it. I think a lot of the people from Venus live there now. Alpha Centauria, in that area. And I was under his tutelage a couple of times. There's this idea that 144,000 souls, the special Eagle commanders, Lord Ashtar calls commanders and commandresses. The Eagle group was the inner core volunteer group. That Sanat Kumara didn't do it often. Millions of years would pass, and you'd hear a siren sound, and everybody would drop everything. That planet Earth was in trouble and needed our help. Now, that was part of the Orion Wars when I became the Rainbow Warrior, was under the tutelage of Sanat Kumara. He was the planetary logos for Earth for a long time. I've even seen someone say from the Theosophical Society that it could have been 18.5 million years ago that he started in the etheric, and also went with him to help build the city of Shambhala near the Gopi Desert, which is desert now, but it wasn't desert then. It looks like, and your viewers can help me with this, with timing of events, because time, it might have been 2.5 million years ago, where we went to help him build and bring the threefold flame, that meditation technique at that time. There was no light on the earth at all. And he volunteered to leave Venus, the planet Venus, and his wife behind in order to try to help planet get from step 1 to step 2.
You wrote a book via automatic writing called Full Moon Messages from the Pleadians, UFO Contact 2024 to 2044.
Right.
What is the main takeaway you want the reader to get from that book?
Well, all of the knowledge and information, 40% of the book is channel information that I got from readings and stuff over the years, from other people and other authors that I read. 60% is from Aim, is the channeled soul twin brother of mine that I worked with at one point, from the Pleadian higher council, the Pleadians, answering questions from the collective consciousness. So I would go to the keyboard, and on full moons, on the night of full moons, because Pleadians are generally a lunar-based society. In other words, it's a softer, more Shakti energy, feminine energy that they would like to integrate. We have a very male-dominated energy here, especially America, believe it or not. We're supposed to be the forerunners for the new age, but it's so male, and so we need balance between the male and the female polarities. So that in the book, I ask a lot of questions. I mean, from the collective, what's the new education going to be like? What's new economics going to be like? What's, are we going to be able to live long like you do without any problems in our body? Because that's the main thing that I'm concerned about is we don't want to watch our elders suffer so much in old age. We really want them to be painless and they don't have the kind of issues with the body that we have. So they live long, 700 to 1,000 years, and they all look like they're 25 years old, So that's the kind of new energy that I talk about in the book. And I also talk about meditation a bit. I teach a technique called inner grace meditation. And I talk about the ancient Indian culture, India, and how a lot of the sacred mantras and sounds came from Lemuria when they migrated to where the Indian Ocean is. What used to be the big island of Sri Lanka. Now it's a smaller island. This was about 40,000 years ago. And then they moved that energy up into India. That's part of the Indian genetics, so to speak.
Where do people go if they want to find out more about it?
I have my book is on Amazon. So if they put in the search engine full moon messages from the Pleadians, it is there. It's inexpensive. It's like $9.99. It's a Kindle form. I don't have it in a book form. But the photographs in it by the award-winning artist Andre Below, I showed you one of them in the earlier, are just gorgeous. He's done geometric patterns that are just, you got to visit his site too. He's very talented in this. And he is funny. I mean, when I spoke to him, when I wanted to use his work, he said, I could be, have the radio on and the TV on when I'm doing this. I don't go into some meditation thing. I says, you're already hot wired for this stuff, obviously. You don't need to, it's a very natural, expression. He doesn't have to do anything, but it's just wonderful to see these geometric patterns and they're gonna love it. It's just the pictures. Usually in Kindle books, you don't get many beautiful pictures.
What is your website if people would like to find out more about what you're up to?
Yeah, it's yogavisionaries.com. So yogavisionaries.com is my website, and that's where I have all of the information and headings in regards to connections to my astrology work and pricing and all that kind of stuff.
You also have a YouTube channel, right?
Yeah, I got about 47 videos on it, and I have a lot of variety. There's 6 classes for astrology that are free, so not even cost you a penny. You can learn how to read your own chart. I have instrumental songs on my synthesizer that I've done for each chapter of the book. Most of them I've done. I think a couple of chapters I haven't done yet. And talk about the book, and so if somebody just wanted to listen to audio, it's all free, on my thoughts about chapter 3. There's also going to be rotating real estate, by the way. We're going to live on ships sometimes and sometimes on the planet. Daryl Anka and Bashar have talked about this with the Essassani culture. They don't live on their planet. They live on the ships, and then they visit the planet periodically. So we're going to have some of that. People are going to feel very free. The economy will be a barter system and based on, like you said something about social, like there's...
I think I just said maybe like galactic credits or something.
Yeah, credits, right. Yeah, for your efforts. But it's not a pressured, 8-hour workday and that sort of thing. There's a lot more time, but there's a bartering that goes on in respect to the environment too, by the way.
If people want to ask you questions, should they leave comments in your videos or contact you on your website?
Yeah, they could, sure. Yeah, either way is fine.
What's the name of your YouTube channel?
I don't have the address memorized on it, but I just call it me. I mean, it's just Louis Valentino, and that's it. And then there's all these playlists at different categories. So if they wanted to read on astrology, some of the current events that are going on, I don't do there's some astrologers out there 24/7. I don't do 24/7 astrology because I do enough to know what's going on, but I don't want to get codependent on planets running our lives all the time. So I give enough information that pleases those who are interested in astrology. But I'd rather see people meditating regularly right now, because having a relationship with silence is really the most important foundation. It may not be as exciting as some of the things that people are doing, but you will feel the bliss. You will feel this awareness that you have inside of you that is very content. And we need to get to that point of simplify. And so we're preparing. When I asked Aim, do you meditate, in the Pleadians? And he showed me as a vision in my mind, sitting in a recliner chair, floating. And he had these little ducks on the tops of the feet, the thighs, the lower abdomen, the heart, and the third eye area of the throat. And they absorb solar and lunar rays as their diet. At that point, that's not it. Don't forget, they're in the higher councils they've gone through the whole Pleadian culture and learned a lesson. Now they're in the higher councils. That's the diet. They feed on light. And they absorb, he says, while we're absorbing this light, it takes about a half an hour in your time. He said, then we're all ready, and then they're off. They re-energize, but they're meditating at the same time that their feeding time is. and then they go off, and everything moves very quickly. So in the upper levels, what it takes us here on Earth to accomplish in 100 years, they can do in 10 years. So everything's, moving much faster.
Lou, before we finish up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
My last positive message is to hold the light. Just whatever you can do, whatever spiritual technique you're using, hold the positive energy, because Pluto is finishing up the purification of all these wars and everything by the end of 2026. That's because a planet has to go through 3 degrees before it settles into a new sign. And Pluto is in Aquarius. And what is Aquarius about? It's about self-empowerment. It's the rebel of the zodiac. So we're seeing the falling apart of government leaders and everything else. This last expression of violence and male energy is at an all-time high. So to hold this more softer feminine energy, that permeates out into the environment. It helps to relax the environment. It offers some pockets of areas where the violence can kind of dissolve itself into, kind of like a little black hole. You become a little black hole for that. So that would be, I think, the thing that I would like to end with, is that to maintain that. The end of 2000, Pluto will be permanently at 3 degrees by, let's say, Thanksgiving, Christmas of this year, 2026. And then things should settle down. I do not see, this is recently, that's come up March 1st of 2027 psychically. I do not see the leaders of the 3 main leaders, Netanyahu, Trump, and Vladimir Putin. I do not see them being the leaders of those nations by March of 2027. So either it's going to be a revolt of the people, just get out of here, we don't want you anymore, we don't want violence anymore, just move on, or it could be a health issue, or it could be what I don't like to say, be taken out by violence. But that's what I'm getting, is that we're in the last stages now. So hang in there, hold your energy, and soon the dress rehearsal will be over, and we can finally open up the curtain and start to get into the new age, the age of enlightenment that we've all been waiting for.
Lou, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
God bless you. Thank you for having me, Jeff.
God bless you.
Namaste.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.